Many who saw him play say there was never anyone better. Darrel Baldock seemed to control the football as if by magic, and he was tough. His is a story which a former Prime Minister's son knew had to be told, despite having a tough time convincing the man himself. The Doc now lives the quiet life on a northwest farm, where I paid him a visit.
Oh, Darrel Baldock, oh, Darrel Baldock, Mr. Magic with the ball.
They called him Mr. Magic, one of the greatest players the game has seen.
He's brilliant, this fellow.
For 2 decades, Darrel Baldock wowed football crowds in Tasmania and Victoria with his breathtaking skill and courage. He's still the only man to lead St Kilda to a premiership.
Murray, there's the side! And St Kilda have won their first premiership.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
These days, the sporting spotlight has been replaced by a humble country life, and those once dazzling reflexes slowed by ill health. Until recently, Baldock and his wife of 50 years, Margaret, were still training racehorses. It's been a colourful, varied life, a full life, now fully documented.
I've known Doc for over 50 years, and I've been a friend of his most of that time. But until I started writing the book, I didn't really know him. He wasn't a bad-looking bloke at his day.
Pretty smart, yes.
He's deteriorated a bit, mind you.
Author Peter Lyons is the son of former Australian Prime Minister Joseph Lyons. He first considered penning the story of his great mate back in the 1990s.
And his only comment, of course, was, well, why? They just couldn't understand. His modesty it ruined the whole thing, to be honest. I'd ask him how he went in a particular game, and he'd say, oh, I went all right, I suppose, but Stewie played a great game, or someone else did not. Say, I'm not interested in Stewie.
But the memories soon came flooding back.
I don't know how many gallons of coffee we've drunk over this and got through lots of laughs and things, and it's been lovely.
Some say Baldock was a born footballer. As a 12-year-old, he kicked 6 goals in a practice match for the East Devonport seniors. The coach, Lindsay Webb, was his idol.
I'd go home and practice in the paddock behind our place and for an hour. Particularly, I was trying to do the things he carried out on the Saturday before. He had a tremendous influence on my playing career.
After winning 3 consecutive best and fairests with East, Baldock became coach of Latrobe while still a teenager. In 1962, the state's star player signed with St Kilda, and the Baldocks moved to Victoria.
It wasn't easy to start with. We didn't know anyone. Had terrible accommodation for the first day. We were ready to come home that night. We weren't staying.
But they soon found their feet. Baldock silenced the critics, winning the Saints' best and fairest in his first year. He was made captain in 1963 and, despite a persistent knee injury, led the club to its first and only premiership in '66.
The night before the grand final, the Doc finally decided he was fit enough because he went for a run, 10 o'clock at night.
After that grand final, you're pictured in the Collingwood jumper, aren't you?
That's correct.
You regretted that, didn't you?
Well, that's the only thing. If you can have it over again, it'll be in the St Kilda jumper.
But even the story of a premiership captain written by the son of a Prime Minister isn't a guaranteed bestseller. Initially, publishers weren't convinced. What reasons were they giving for that?
Mainly that Doc had played so many years ago and that he was yesterday's man.
What was your reaction?
Well, it took a lot of hogwash. You've only got to read the book to know that he's more than just a footballer.
Baldock played cricket for Tasmania and made a half-century against the West Indies. Pigeon racing and the sport of kings were also great loves. He won all of the state's major horse races. To round it off, Baldock spent 15 years in Tasmanian politics, rising to the rank of Cabinet Minister.
Looking back, yes, I could have been Premier of Tasmania.
But it was during his time in Parliament that tragedy struck. The Baldocks lost their only son, David, to a car accident in 1980.
It was hard. It still is hard.
More tough times followed. In 1987, Baldock again faced criticism when he took on the coaching role at St Kilda while still in Parliament.
Bloody stupid errors, and we don't care.
Even Mr Magic couldn't inspire the struggling Saints.
The most disappointing part of my life was probably going back to coach St Kilda.
It coincided with significant health setbacks. A series of mini strokes affected his speech and emotions.
Darrel's health's been a worry to it, but we're getting through that all right, and we're coping.
There's the shot by Baldock. The goal umpire didn't move very much.
The man who inspired many a young player rarely gets to games these days. Some would say he's just about seen it all in football anyway. But there's something Baldock's still desperate to witness. His Saints go marching to another flag.
Been waiting on every breath. This year's going to be the year, and everyone's still saying this year we're right.